Are you interested in being a quantum coder? The job market looks as large as the machines are cold. We're all struggling in the industry to find talent. Do you have what it takes? You might even be able to get started with less experience than you think. Find out more about the path to this exciting career in this episode of the Post-Quantum World. I'm your host, Konstantinos Karagiannis. I lead quantum computing services at Prerequisites, where we're helping companies prepare for the benefits and threats of this exploding field. I hope you'll join each episode as we explore the technology and business impacts of this post-quantum era. Our guest today is the Quantum Solutions Manager at ColdQuanta, Peter Noell. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Konstantinos. Excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And we, of course, know each other. We're starting to work on some things together, but I thought it'd be great to have you in for this super important topic, one I wanted to touch for a while. Being a quantum coder is probably going to be the hottest job in this industry for the next decade or so. I expect to see it just explode in both opportunities and people coming out of school looking to fill those opportunities. So I thought it'd be great to have you on to just talk a little bit about how you ended up in this type of position and maybe what insights folks can glean on how they can maybe switch gears and join this type of career too. But first, tell us a little bit about the company you work for and a little bit about how the recent merger happened. Maybe our listeners might be interested.
Yeah. So the company I work for is called ColdQuanta, and it was founded in 2007 in Boulder, Colorado. And it's not just a quantum computing company, but a quantum ecosystem company with a quantum everywhere approach. So on the quantum computing side of the house, the company recently, in the last year or so, launched Hilbert, its first quantum computer, which is based on the neutral atom approach to quantum computing, which is, as you know, a more of a newcomer to the quantum computing types, but we see a lot of advantages in terms of scalability, connectivity, and more engineering challenges rather than scientific with the approach. So really excited about that. But before starting at ColdQuanta, I was in grad school at the University of Chicago. I was in a joint program where I got my MBA and computer science master's, which is a really awesome program that I can talk a bit more about, why it was right for me. But during my summer internship, I interned at a company called Super.tech with just a couple people there when I was interning. I think we had 3 full-time employees who are all still here at ColdQuanta. And in May of this year, ColdQuanta acquired Super.tech, and I was planning to return full-time to Super.tech, and now I'm full-time at ColdQuanta. So it's really exciting and really exciting merger because Super.tech was software focused in the sense that Super.tech creates these optimizations and implements them for these quantum computers, and it's hardware agnostic. So whether it's superconducting, neutral atom, trapped ion, we optimize the software programs for the quantum computers. So cutting down runtime, number of gate operations, circuit depth. We try to squeeze every bit of juice out of these quantum computers. So Super.tech's continuing to maintain its focus on being hardware agnostic. So we don't necessarily think it'll be winner take all in terms of which quantum computer modality will deliver quantum advantage. So we're continuing to implement these optimizations into our software stack called SuperStack continuously. And that's not exactly what I focus on here, as my job title indicates, Quantum Solutions Manager. I'm on the application side of things, talking to customers and seeing how quantum can benefit them.
Yeah, that's great. And listeners know both companies. Pranav and Fred have come on from Super.tech side, and Paul's come on from the ColdQuanta side. So now you're all one big happy family, and and you get to add to the to the lore that has been told on this podcast.
Yeah,
Yeah, and we're definitely going to talk a little bit about your day job, actually providing applications. That's super important to why we're here. So before we get to some of those use cases and things that you've worked on, let's talk a little bit about your background. So you also spent some time in the military, right?
I did. So I guess the place to start for my background would be as an undergrad at Notre Dame.
Mm-hmm.
There, I was a applied math and statistics major, and while that was my focus academically, I knew that I was going to be entering the military upon graduation because I was doing the ROTC program there, the Army ROTC program. So I didn't really have to think about what a private sector job would look like for me because I was going into military service. So I
Mm-hmm.
did that for 4 years, was an infantry officer, and really didn't do anything math or science related during that time. But it was great experience to gain some leadership experience and try something new and scratch an itch. Something that I knew I wanted to do was to serve. So I spent 4 years on mobilized to South Korea at a pretty interesting time, 2018, for U.S. and Korean relations. And then I exited the service in 2020 during the pandemic and entered grad school at UChicago. And the program I did was a joint MBA and computer science master's program, which I thought was perfect for me because the MBA opens up a lot of options. Most veterans go into things like consulting and banking, which are great.
Mm-hmm.
But the addition of the computer science masters opened a lot of doors for me, and I knew I wanted to do something different. And so I met Pranav through UChicago and was struck by his work ethic and intelligence. So I knew that that was a team I wanted to be a part of. So I interned at Super.tech and was returning for this year, 2020, when I graduated.
Yeah, yeah. Pranav is quite a great guy, and when you meet him, you just feel this like confidence like rolling off of him. It's really wonderful to be around.
Yeah.
It definitely is. Yeah, he's pretty great. So what we're seeing here is that you started off with one of these like core prerequisites, right? So you were involved in computational mathematics, and I mean that's like one of the key prerequisites. Um, so looking back, what would you say should be the prerequisites for someone who's interested in coding, quantum coding?
Quantum coding.
Hmm.
I think just having any coding basis combined with an interest to learn is enough, really. So in undergrad, I had some exposure to a lot of exposure to things like linear algebra,
Hmm.
combinatorial optimization. But the program I was in wasn't too coding centric. You know, some in R and C++, but um, grad school is a great opportunity to kind of level the water there for me, and uh, so I gained a lot of experience in grad school with Python, and that was a great way to apply these ideas that you find in linear algebra and combinatorics to real world applications. So the applications that I've been working on mostly have been optimization kind of problems. The way I view it is the quantum applications can be broken into three categories, like optimization, simulation, and machine learning. And what I've been
Hmm.
focused on so far is mostly been combinatorial optimization problems.
Yeah, I've been talking about that major trio quite often. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. It's exactly that: optimization, machine learning, simulation, 100%. And what's fascinating is so you had these basics like linear algebra, which is super important. Then you kind of like I don't want to say put it aside, but basically put it aside for like 4 years, right? I don't imagine you were using that daily in the military, and then you came back to it and you started, like, as you're saying, like leveling off with all these new coding skills. So I think that's important for folks who maybe did have some of those math prerequisites and they kind of like forgot about them or let them in the back burner. What was it like dusting them off after 4 years? Let's say was it easy? Did you have to do some like refresh?
I had to do some refresh, and I think that's one of the great things about working at a place like Super.tech and ColdQuanta is that there's such an emphasis. It's a great mix of an academic mindset with a commercial mindset. Like day to day, if I have the latitude to just learn something new. If that's all I did that day, then that's actually could be a successful day because it could lead to a couple weeks of working on some code that has some commercial applications. But um, working at a quantum company like ColdQuanta, you have the latitude to just learn new things and refresh things that you're rusty on.
A little bit like that Google percentage time for personal projects.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we
Yeah.
have that going on this week. So, and
Okay.
and in the machine learning space, I don't claim right now to have too much of a background in machine learning, but in the next few years, I definitely plan on adding that capability to my coding skill set.
Yeah, yeah. And on that note, what would you do to start approaching that? Because machine learning will be important, obviously, as gate-based machines get better. Even in your own machine, as Hilbert and its predecessors, and its like children, I guess, will
Yeah.
as they start to get better, machine learning will be more useful. So, what are you going to do now? What kind of like educational approach would you do at this point in your career?
I don't even think that I need a formal
Oh yeah, yeah,
formal
no.
track necessarily to
Mhm.
to learn. I think it's just being at the company around people like Pranav and some of the other team members we have here with that expertise. I think you'll learn through osmosis, and uh, I think there's a lot of structures in place day to day at the company here
Mhm.
where you learn efficiently, where you just we have an hour lunch and learn or whatever it is um, to share knowledge among people at the company. And even if you don't understand something right away, I think over time you absorb it and and ingrain the concepts. Like for example, I didn't have any formal quantum training prior
Mhm.
to interning at Super.tech. I since in my second year took our co-founder at Super.tech, Fred Chong's class, so I do have a bit more formal quantum education. But just over that summer, being in the quantum environment, I was able to adapt what I knew to quantum concepts and frameworks.
Yeah, that's really an optimistic thing to say for those listening. You might be coming to this from more of the coding side, and you have that math background, but quantum is a mystery to you, and let's face it, it's a mystery to most people. But you are able to learn some of those necessary things. And would you say that helped you? What aspect of coding does that help you with? I mean, this is like one of those questions that I kind of know the answer to, but yeah.
What aspects
So
do
understanding quantum, how do you feel that helps you do things like encodings or other aspects of writing actual? Uh,
in terms of writing actual code? I think just
mhm.
just getting repetitions uh, is the way I learn personally. Um, just getting repetition, refining code. I think that's one thing that we have great here, starting in 2020 with Super.tech, was that Pranav and Victory Omola, he's the first employee. They really have a disciplined software engineering procedure where I think our code base and workflow is really streamlined and keeps things clean and efficient. I don't know if that was your question
Yeah, well,
exactly.
I meant, yeah, no, that's good info. I just mean more along lines like the knowledge you have now of how qubits actually work and what's really going on with a block sphere and all that. On a more practical day to day, when you're coding, how does that help you?
I see. So, for example, one of the problem formulations that I work on, they're called QUBOs, quadratic
Hmm.
unconstrained binary optimization. So, understanding how those problems map to quantum computers, that allows me to formulate the QUBOs better for real world problems. So, thinking about applications where the natural formulation is a QUBO. So, uh, for example, things that are decision based. So yes or no, buy or don't buy, sell or don't sell, go long or go short. Those are some obvious ones that come to mind, but more creative implementations that we've been working on. It expands the range of applications that you can apply quantum for. Just
Okay.
having that mindset. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and of course, it becomes about understanding the actual specific hardware you're running on too, right? Um,
So that's something that we're trying to abstract away in the long term at
mhm.
Super.tech, is where the user doesn't have to even consider what hardware will be best. We've been working on quantum benchmarking with our Supermark suite of benchmarks. So part of that is to inform customers that of what quantum hardware will be best for their specific applications. But beyond that, in the long term, we would like to see a world where the customer doesn't even have to think about that. It's all handled by our software stack.
Yeah. And so for those who might not have heard about it, so how Supermark works is it runs very focused types of applications against known quantum computers, and it gives benchmarks like the old days. Um, What's useful about that is you could see that, oh, I want to run this type of specific problem. And look, it's this piece of hardware that's the best at it. So if you're going to spend money on running shots on the cloud or whatever, you actually know which machine to go to, which is useful. And then it becomes a matter of understanding how to get the most out of that machine. And you're hoping to abstract away that getting the most out of the machine so people don't have to go down to the pulse level and mess around, like the early days. So,
Yeah.
how do you envision that kind of software approach of abstracting that away affecting this industry? Because let's face it, all coders have it easier now, right? Like you come in, that you have an IDE, you have like little bits that you're working on. It's not like you have to boil the ocean, as a developer at a huge company. So how do you envision this kind of tool and other competitors improving the odds of getting hired and actually being productive sooner?
Yeah. So I think in terms of abstracting that away, I think it depends on customer sophistication levels.
Hmm.
Some more sophisticated, larger customers are willing to be a bit more in the weeds
Hmm.
when it comes to quantum, but to really make quantum a part of more people's lives and more useful for them, you have to abstract away some of these difficult concepts that a lot of people just don't have the time to learn because they're focused on other aspects of their business. Was the second part of your question regarding like quantum coders?
Yeah, yeah. So what can their outlook be like? So let's say there's these young adults right now studying, and they're going to be out in a couple of years. Maybe if you can just like give a little futuristic thought about what it might look like, when they come out. Will some of this abstracting away make life easy? Will it almost be like they could step into a traditional software role like now because it'd be so set up?
Yeah, I think it will progress to that point. Um, in some ways, I think my role at ColdQuanta is having a foot in both camps. Like I've learned a bit about the quantum side, but I also can almost play the role of a non super quantum literate person in terms of I'm quantum literate, but I'm not optimizing for pulse level control like some of my
Hmm.
colleagues are.
Hmm.
So I think there's a world for both um, both levels of quantum literacy, and I think you'll see moving forward in the next few years that a lot of that does get abstracted away more by quantum physics PhD level types for sure.
So, would you say that if someone wanted to come work at your company in the next few months, do you think that they'd have an easier time getting started because of your more mature software stack?
I think so. And I don't think you need it's not a prerequisite. It would be nice to have, but you don't need an intense quantum background to start working at ColdQuanta or a company like ColdQuanta. Um, as you know, there's definitely a less less supply than demand, or yeah, less supply than demand for talent right now in the quantum industry. I think there's something like over 1,000 jobs open in the industry. So I think any level of quantum knowledge plus a solid coding background, you'll find opportunities in the quantum industry for sure.
Yeah, I agree, definitely. So, back on that note a little bit, if someone were just entering college right now and they decided, yep, that's what I want to do, I want to code quantum computers in 4 years, uh, there aren't really known tracks right now, right? You can't just go select quantum coder, boom. I've
Yeah,
been talking to universities. I'm pushing on them. I'm sure the CQE, the Chicago Quantum Exchange, is pushing on for that too. We all want this. We want a bunch of schools that are like producing this ready to go, eager team. So, what would you say someone could do to sort of cobble together their own focused? And then I'll have a different question after about someone who's already done school. But yeah, what would you say would be good advice for someone who wants to just start from scratch?
I think if you knew for sure that you wanted to get into quantum computing, you
Hmm.
can't go wrong with physics or computer science or both.
Hmm.
If you have the latitude to do both as a major, I think that would set you up very nicely. Um, Really, I think any STEM background combined with some coding experience, you'll be able to do well if you have a strong interest. But if you know that's what you want to do, then computer science or physics or both would be the way to go, no doubt.
Yeah, and you could see that natural marriage is there. There has to be a way to turn that into a curriculum, that that could be followed.
Totally,
Yeah,
totally. And I know more schools like U Chicago just started a quantum specific program. They have a quantum or a molecular engineering program as well. Those Something like that would be great.
yeah, they have
Um,
that, and then I have their other certificate that they do. Yeah, I have that too.
and for someone like me, if you have a STEM background, a program like the MPCS, Master's Program in Computer Science at U Chicago, is great for me because they don't assume any prior coding experience, just strong STEM skills and a willingness to learn, and they'll build you from the ground up there.
Oh, yeah, that's really good to know for anyone interested in that school. That sounds terrific.
Yeah.
Um,
So if you already have a bachelor's degree or something, but are now like, oh shoot, I'm really interested in this, then
so
that's a
yeah,
great
that
route to go.
that leads us to this next question kind of naturally. So that's one way if you have a bachelor's degree and you want to do a program like that. But let's say someone was a little more, I don't know, they spent many, many years as a coder and now they just want to get into quantum. What would you say would be a good approach for them to be hireable in a short term?
I think they are hireable if they have many years of coding experience. I know a lot of people in our Madison office worked at companies like Epic up there and like video game companies. So different coding experiences for sure, but they had the skills necessary to get started building software there. So I think if you can self teach some quantum concepts, that's great. But I think just getting started at a company like ColdQuanta and being in an environment where you learn every day and absorb this new information for you, you're going to do great.
That's pretty exciting. I hope you guys are ready for the resumes now after this episode.
Well, we're hiring.
Yeah. Well, look at that. This is well timed for you two then.
Yeah.
um, so we talked a little bit about this and getting started, and this is all super optimistic and exciting. Now let's talk a little bit about the day to day, the types of applications you're working on, just to give a taste to listeners of what it's like.
Yeah. So like I said, most of the applications that I'm working on are these optimization kind of problems at the moment.
Hmm.
Um, so we're talking with interested customers and seeing what problems for them are either take too long to solve or where they're getting suboptimal solutions. Those are, I think, the two things that in the near term and the long term, quantum will be good for. So day to day, I am exploring what these customers really need. I think you hear a lot in the quantum community about, oh, there's going to be so many applications, but then you dive in, and they're right now, people are still discovering what they are. And I think as time progresses, they'll become more and more evident. And I think you'll find them in areas that you didn't know to look initially. Like the one people always say is portfolio optimization, and there are a lot of different flavors to what that can be. But talking to customers and seeing like, well, what does portfolio optimization mean for you? Like, does that mean you're interested in improving something like direct indexing, where you follow an index and you track an index with your portfolio, but you can customize it in different ways, and for ESG type purposes, or for tax loss harvesting, things like that. That we found there's some interest there, and some applicability for quantum too. So that's one that I've been looking at. Also, fraud detection. That's massive for credit card companies. So we've been exploring ways there to uncover fraudulent transactions and rings of fraudulent transactions. So those are some of the more interesting ones that I've been working on. Something I will say is we haven't done a lot of work yet in drug discovery and chemistry. We haven't done a lot of research in that area. It's mostly been in finance, logistics, and energy optimization. So we worked with an energy company to optimize their power grid, and done some really exciting work there.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other areas are very specialized. It's hard
Yeah,
to get up to speed on the chemical, side. It's a bit much.
exactly. So the team we have here is mostly physicists and computer scientists, a nice mix and the best of both worlds, in my opinion. But we don't really have the chemists to work on specific applications for that at the moment. Another area of interest is in like government work, so defense, which for me is interesting. Just being a former military member, I think there's a lot of interesting applications there. Not necessarily in the infantry, which is where I was, but things like more on the Navy and Air Force side of the house rather than the Army. So missile defense or things of that nature. We see some potential applications there too.
Yeah, and then I know there's other areas that border on the security aspect, not necessarily just national security, but more like securing a company using quantum computers to spot anomalies and things. So your background seems to have influenced some of this, and you have an MBA too. So does that help you then in talking to financial customers? I mean, do you find that you're dusting that off regularly because you can pull out of them what they really want?
Yeah, well, yeah, I think it adds some credibility, and I think going forward for my career, that definitely helps in terms of upward mobility and eventually taking a leadership position in a quantum in the quantum realm. So I think that definitely helps. For my current role, I'm actually more interested in exploring these applications and doing some coding day to day. That's what I want to do right now, just to build out my quantum literacy, and like I said, maybe learn a bit more about machine learning and simulation. So that's what I'm focused on in the near term. But I think going forward, having the MBA is certainly going to be a big part of my career.
And if you could project a couple of years out, what dream application would you like to be working on as machines get a little better? And there must be something that in the back of your mind is like, I just know this is going to be great, but we're not ready yet.
I think for me, the dream application, you see this a lot. It's that people are fascinated by it. There's the traveling salesperson problem,
Hmm.
just the various applications of that. I don't know how much you know about it, but the current best algorithm that's guaranteed to have, I think at best it guarantees that the solution will be at worst 50% worse than the optimal solution. And it's been that way since like the 70s. So just finding some improvement, practical improvement for applications of that is so fascinating for me, just because it seems like people have been stuck on it for so long. And obviously there's so many applications for that, especially in logistics.
You picked a good one, because
Yeah.
I do believe that one's going to be within 2 years, easy.
Yeah,
I
I
have a
think that
feeling.
one. I think that one's gonna just unlock so many things.
Yeah, and I think D-Wave's very next hybrid solver that they're going to release, I think that might even be the key.
Yeah.
It's looking like a beefy improvement. Um,
Yep.
yeah, so
That's the
that's
one.
yeah. You've definitely already painted a really optimistic picture, which is awesome. Do you have any last advice you'd like to give to any neophytes out there?
I think just focus on improving your coding skills and do some teaching. Uh, just teach yourself some quantum. I know IBM has some great resources with Qiskit. Um, so if you just work through their Qiskit textbook and teach yourself some things like that, I think you'll set yourself up for success in the job market.
Yeah, that's great. And I think folks should remember that there's something else that they're good at too. And you might be able to bring that too, to a position. If it is something like a financial background or whatever, it can also come in very, very handy.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think having the MBA too, the academic components of the MBA, different techniques for portfolio optimization that I learned on the MBA side of the house, but then I'm now trying to optimize on the CS side of the house. That's been really valuable for me too. So don't underestimate that, and don't underestimate soft skills from the Army that you pick up there, things like that. So any parts of your background, you'll be able to add value to your quantum company.
Great. So, Peter, thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed talking to you today. And I hope our listeners are inspired to actually give this a try soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Konstantinos.
Now it's time for Coherence, the Quantum Executive Summary, where I take a moment to highlight some of the business impacts we discussed today in case things got too nerdy at times. Let's recap. Peter Noell took us through his personal journey to quantum application development, and we got to see a few recurring themes. You don't necessarily need experience as a quantum coder to enter the field. It all depends on which prerequisites you bring to the table. Linear algebra and coding experience are a solid start. It may be possible to then pick up enough quantum knowledge for coding using a self-taught approach. Machine learning skills are sure to be helpful immediately. Plenty of soft skills come in handy here too. Customers will need code explained to them, for instance. And if you have any vertical experience in an industry, it may help you understand business needs around the problems a use case is trying to solve. Depending on the company you want to work for, there may be a system in place to help you become productive quickly. Do they use a software tool that helps abstract away some coding complexity? It looks like these types of dev platforms may only get better, and coders in a couple of years will have it even easier. This is for so-called experienced hires, of course. Those interested in entering college now must be proactive and choose or create a major that makes sense. A dual major in physics and computer science is a no-brainer. We'd love for universities to step up here and create majors and curriculums designed with quantum coding as a career specifically in mind. Remember, Peter didn't have a quantum coding degree to select, but he's now developing real use cases in the field. Does a career in quantum coding sound appealing to you? Do you feel you have what it takes? If so, ColdQuanta is hiring, and so are we here at Protiviti. That does it for this episode. Thanks to Peter Noell for joining to discuss the path to a quantum coding career and ColdQuanta. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to Protiviti's The Post-Quantum World, and maybe leave a review to help others find us. Be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Constant Hacker. That's Constant with a K, Hacker. You'll find links there to what we're doing in quantum computing services at Protiviti. You can also DM me questions or suggestions for what you'd like to hear on the show. For more information on our quantum services, check out Protiviti.com or follow Super.tech on Twitter and LinkedIn. Until next time, be kind and stay quantum curious.